Chapter 745. Gu Mingming nodded. Yeah, I want to go to the ocean. Accompany me. Wabi snorted. Not free. Not going. Gu Mingming placed her hands behind her back and said lightly, Snake asked you to accompany me. The moment he heard the first three words, Wabi was stunned. His hands trembled uncontrollably as he stared at the little female who had casually mentioned that name. After a long while he finally found his voice. If you dare to lie to me, I will kill you. Gu Mingming smiled innocently. Don't brag. You can't beat me. I will become a beast king one day. Wabi roared. Gu Mingming shrugged. Even if you become a beast king, you will at most be on par with me. Moreover, you are just a pile of sh*t. Do you think you can become a demon? Wabi's face flushed with anger. Are you talking about my looks again? Actually, in the past 800 years, he had always been quite confident of his looks. He had once felt that the only person in this world who was slightly better looking than him was Snake. But ever since this little girl came, his confidence in his looks had been crushed to bits. Now he was traumatized. Especially after accompanying her to Saint Nazaire, and seeing what a four-legged animal's sh*t looked like. Gu Mingming circled 3 times with her right hand, then placed it on her chest and did a gentlemanly salute. She then said, The Honorable President of the Appearance Association, a veteran member of the elite class, a staunch supporter of the idea that looks are justice, I am Gu Mingming. You. What about me? Gu Mingming was clearly fearless. And Wabi really couldn't do anything to her. Wabi flung his hands. He wanted to turn and leave in a suave manner. But he had only taken one step when he stopped. Without turning back, he turned his back to Gu Mingming. His voice was cold. This was his final stubbornness. When do we set off? Gu Mingming didn't put on airs. Tomorrow morning. Wabi didn't say another word. He just walked away. To Elvis and Leah, the Snake King Valley was really not a place with beautiful memories. So Gu Mingming asked them to wait for her outside the valley. And that night, Gu Mingming did not feel sleepy at all. She wandered aimlessly in the Snake King Valley, but realized that Snake's shadow was everywhere she went. Apart from the 1 month they spent together, her body also contained thousands of years of memories of him. Wasn't he everywhere she went? A few little snakes led the way for Gu Mingming, and brought her to the spot where she buried the fruits from the fruit tree that Snake had kicked over. Gu Mingming squatted in front of that tender green branch, and could not help but smile. She gently stroked the leaf with her fingers and muttered to herself. A new cycle, a new beginning. Snake, are you living well over there too? Gu Mingming didn't return to the cave, and just slept at a spot not far from the little sapling. Before she slept, she instructed the little snake that if she didn't wake up the next morning, Wabi was to carry her away. Elvis and Leah would wait outside for her as they knew where to go. Closing her eyes slowly, Gu Mingming thought to herself, Lonely old man, your filial daughter is back to watch romantic dramas with you. Chapter 746. Daughter, you are back. This conversation should have been accompanied by 2 plates of steaming dumplings and an old man in an apron, and not this smiling person in her early 20s, dressed in white. Gu Mingming no longer had the energy to criticize the setting of this father and daughter, who asked her to be the one to use them as a shield. Lonely old man, I have something to ask you. Gu Mingming was afraid that she would forget about this after watching the television series, so she asked first, Does Wang Xiaoxin know how to set up an array? Like an investiture of the gods? The beast deity pursed his lips and chuckled. He shook his head in an exceptionally benevolent manner. She doesn't. Gu Mingming replied. Oh, then Fei Rui said that the kiss of the ocean is in some forbidden abyss, and that she had set up some array. The beast deity maintained his benevolent smile of a deity loving the world. He replied. The array in the forbidden abyss was not set up by Wang Xiaoxin. It was set up by me. Gu Mingming really wanted to spit on his face, but thinking that she had a favor to ask, she held it in. How do I break it? I want to go in and take the kiss of the ocean. The beast deity replied. No need to break it. You can just go in. Gu Mingming asked, Really? The beast deity replied. That array is only effective against the ocean tribes. It is useless against other races. Gu Mingming looked at the beast deity suspiciously. Are you lying? The beast deity straightened his expression and said, Immortals cannot lie. I set up that array to prevent the appearance of the treasure, which would cause chaos and no one could control the situation. So I forbade the ocean tribes from bringing it out from the ocean. And the forbidden abyss is in the depths of the ocean. Other than the ocean tribes, no one has the ability to infiltrate there. So I only set up the array to target the ocean tribes. Gu Mingming smiled with her eyes narrowed. She wrapped her arms around the beast deity's arm. Papa, you will help me, right? The beast deity looked at Gu Mingming for a while before replying. Call me Papa when there is something important, and call me a lonely old man when there is nothing important. TSK. Where did you learn to curry favor with others? Gu Mingming put on a cheeky face and smiled. Papa, all the daughters in the world are the same. You're only a good kid when you get pocket money. You have to learn to accept reality. The beast deity thought about it and sighed as if he had accepted his fate. All right, my good daughter. Watch a TV series with me, and I'll give you some pocket money. Gu Mingming nodded and sat down with a face full of joy. All right, father. With a wave of the beast deity's hand, a part of the white fog cleared away. Gu Mingming was like a bored fairy sitting in the clouds, watching the romantic idol drama between Snake and her other self with great interest. Yes, Snake was in charge of romance and idols, so she could only be in charge of dramas. The bell signaling the start of class had already rung, and the professor was taking attendance on the roll. Gu Mingming sat at the furthest corner of the classroom. This lesson was compulsory, and there were about 200 people in the classroom. Because of the scene on the field just now, her heart was in a mess, and she just wanted to find a corner to calm down. However, it was obvious that someone was not willing to let her do as she wished. A slender figure leaned against the door. The sunlight elongated his shadow, pointing straight at a certain ostrich in the classroom. His jade green eyes carried a hint of playfulness and a lot of pampering. With just one look, he found her in the corner of the classroom. Chapter 747. Gu Mingming. The professor had been looking down at the name list, and did not notice that all the female students in the class had fallen into a love-struck atmosphere. When no one responded to his call, the professor was a little displeased. He raised his head and shouted, Is Gu Mingming here? I'm here. Snake raised his hand and walked in from the doorway with graceful and steady steps. This simple word caused an uproar in the classroom. Shock. The cool school hunk was not a mute. Snake could not see anyone other than Gu Mingming. No matter how crazy the lascivious girls around him were, he only walked towards Gu Mingming step by step. He bent down, satisfied that her gaze was always focused on his face. Curling his devilish lips, he said, Go in, I will sit at the side for you to look. Gu Mingming then snapped out of her trance and lowered her head hurriedly, saying, Who's looking at you? You think too highly of yourself. Snake narrowed his eyes with an unhappy expression, saying, Or do you think I look better when I stand at the door? If you like, I can also stand back there. The students had already started jeering and Gu Mingming's face turned even redder. She could guarantee that if Snake really stood at the classroom door for an entire lesson, she would definitely become public enemy number one. Not knowing what went wrong, Gu Mingming stood up and said to the professor, Professor, this person is not from our class. He is disrupting the order of the class. Aren't you going to chase him out? The professor was obviously taken aback when he saw Snake. His brows were tightly knitted together. He originally wanted to keep the peace, but after Gu Mingming's words, he had no choice but to ask. So he cleared his throat and asked, This student, are you from our class? Snake turned around and smiled politely, saying, No, I am a family member. With that, without waiting for Gu Mingming's reaction, he had already sat on Gu Mingming's seat. He then looked up at Gu Mingming with a smile, asking, Sit in there, or sit in my arms. It's up to you. Gu Mingming's face was as red as a pig's liver. She had originally chosen to sit at the furthest corner, in order to remain calm. In front of her was the table, and behind her was the wall. The only exit was blocked by Snake. Unless she could fly, She had nowhere else to go. All right. Isn't it just a student who wants to listen in? Don't you have a seat inside? Sit down, don't disturb the class. The professor lectured Gu Mingming at the right time. This made Gu Mingming speechless even if she wanted to retort. Fuming, she shifted inwards and sat against the wall, as if she wished she could pass through the wall. Snake chuckled. This professor's research project was funded by him. It had started 3 years ago. Before the semester started, the research had entered the final critical moment, but he suddenly refused to give the professor any funding. When the professor was in a panic, he arranged for someone to call the professor to his office for a meeting. He was raising a dog, after all, it had to know its master. With one hand on the table, Snake smiled at Gu Mingming, who was avoiding him like the plague. He did not like this feeling. Although she was afraid of him in the past, she had never avoided and rejected him like this. With his palm facing upwards, Snake placed his hand on the table and said softly, "Tu Meng." Gu Mingming snorted. She politely declined such a way of addressing her like a dog. Rolling her eyes, she turned her head to the side and ignored Snake. Digression. Today's update was actually stuck on Snake's digression, although it was not a crucial plot, but to be stuck in such a high sugar content area. The babies would probably not be happy. I was wrong, even so, you guys still have to love me, understand? Chapter 748. How was Snake someone who would allow others to ignore him like that? Especially when that person was Gu Mingming, he would never allow it. So he flipped his hand and placed it on Gu Mingming's arm. Pulling his arm back, Gu Mingming was pulled from her seat into Snake's arms. The commotion was not small, and coupled with the fact that everyone in class was already paying attention to them, it caused a commotion. Gu Mingming blushed furiously as she glared at Snake. "What are you doing? Are you behaving like a hooligan?" But Snake smiled. He liked the way she looked at him. She could be bashful or angry, as long as she looked at him. He sat at his original spot lazily, and did not move. His lips curled up slightly, clearly in a good mood. He said, "My arms are the safest and most comfortable. It's always better than sitting on that hard bench." Crazy. Gu Mingming scolded softly, and was about to stand up. Snake's large hand grabbed onto Gu Mingming's waist, and his upper body moved downwards. He used his entire body to hug Gu Mingming, giving her a huge amount of pressure. He squinted his eyes and smiled wickedly. He whispered into Gu Mingming's ear, "If you dare to stand up, I will kiss you in front of everyone." Gu Mingming instinctively raised her hands to cover her mouth tightly. She stared at Snake in shock, her face full of wariness, but she could not do anything to him. Snake rubbed Gu Mingming's head and smiled. "Just stay in my arms obediently and look at me." Gu Mingming really wanted to cry, but no tears came out. What was wrong with this mute school hunk who was popular in the whole school? Did he lose in truth or dare? Sob, 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 heavens, earth. Which deity will show herself and subdue this demon? Gu Mingming did not dare to stay a second longer. She flipped over the table and ran away. Seeing how she knocked over many tables and chairs along the way and sent many students flying, Snake's lips curled into a doting and indulgent smile. His Tu Ming was living well. She was healthy and could run very fast. Getting up, Snake walked towards the exit of the classroom. A group of girls who had been waiting for the entire lesson finally seized the opportunity and surrounded Snake tightly. They used the time of a lesson to write the love letters on the spot and presented them to Snake. However, Snake frowned and his gaze turned sharp and cold. He didn't even bother to say scram to them. With a cold expression, he forced back the people in front of him step by step. How annoying, he wasted a full 17 seconds of his time. These 17 seconds were originally enough for him to catch the flustered little rabbit. On the other side, Gu Mingming's mind went blank. She hugged her school bag and escaped into the female toilet. She clearly didn't do anything wrong, but she didn't know why she felt so scared and guilty. Her heart was about to jump out of her throat, but she didn't know what she was afraid of. Her phone rang and Gu Mingming quickly picked it up when she saw that it was a call from her workplace. Before she could say anything, the foreman directly informed her that she no longer needed to go to work from today onwards. He said that the company had redistributed the staff, and there was no longer a need for part-time employees. Her salary had already been transferred to her bank account. Then he hung up. Before Gu Mingming could react, another call came in. It was the school dormitory management auntie. She said that someone in her dormitory had violated the rules by cooking, so everyone in her dormitory had been disqualified. Their luggage had all been packed and piled up in the mail room. She was told to take it and leave quickly. Aside. Chapter 749. Gu Mingming squatted in the toilet with her phone and school bag in hand, suddenly feeling dazed. She had looked at her horoscope before leaving the house, and it said that today was a good day to confess. But why did bad things happen one after another from the moment she confessed? The bell for class had already rung, but Gu Mingming had no intention of going to class. She lost her job, lost her place to stay. She had some savings on hand, and it should be enough to support her until she found a new job. But she had to find a place to stay as soon as possible, or she would have to sleep under the bridge tonight. In a daze, Gu Mingming washed her face and encouraged herself in front of the mirror. Then, she came out of the toilet, and was prepared to look for cheaper girls' shared accommodation near the school. As soon as he walked out of the restroom, he saw a man with a typical European appearance leaning against the wall of the women's restroom. He exuded an irresistible aristocratic aura. Even when he was smiling, he gave off the urge to kneel down and shout, "Long live the king!" For no reason, Gu Mingming blushed instinctively. Lowering her head, Gu Mingming turned and ran in the opposite direction. But how could her 2 short legs outrun the other's 2 long legs? Taking a step forward, Snake easily grabbed Gu Mingming's school bag and pulled, causing Gu Mingming to fall backwards. A well-prepared chest caught her firmly, and a large hand with distinct joints pinched Gu Mingming's chin. His mischievous gaze was filled with playfulness and the corners of his lips curved into a smile. His voice was clear and cold, and every word was like pearls landing on a jade plate, so crisp that no one could ignore it. "You didn't cry?" Gu Mingming was taken aback, and thought that Snake was probably referring to the time he hugged her in class. Not daring to provoke this man, Gu Mingming grinned and said, "You lost in truth or dare, right? The punishment is to make me cry? Then, why don't I cooperate and cry a few times?" Snake's face turned cold and he said, "You're not allowed to cry, it's so ugly." "Then I won't cry. Almighty, can you let go?" Gu Mingming looked at Snake with a pleading expression. Snake raised his eyebrows and said, "On what basis?" Gu Mingming choked on the question and was caught off guard and could not answer. He shouldn't have been grabbed like this in the first place. He should have let go, right? "What do you mean by why?" Snake curled his lips and said, "You almost fell and I caught you. You want me to let go of you without thanking me?" Gu Mingming had a look of realization as she hurriedly nodded her head and said, I was muddle-headed and forgot. Almighty, thank you, thank you, thank you." "Do you know who I am?" Snake asked as he firmly held onto Gu Mingming, who was desperately trying to break free. Gu Mingming said with a fawning expression, "Who in the entire university doesn't know you? Your name is like thunder piercing the ears, like the sun in the sky, like, who am I?" Gu Mingming, the coolest school hunk. "What about the name?" Snake was unhappy. Gu Mingming pursed her lips into a straight line, then shook her head slowly and honestly. Snake narrowed his eyes and was obviously angry. Was he not famous enough? In order to occupy the position of senior Adonis in her heart, His Highness Snakel, actually competed with a bunch of useless people in swimming for entertainment. But this heartless girl actually didn't know his name. Chapter 750. Gu Mingming looked at Snake in a daze, her face full of confusion. "I like boys from the swimming club?" "I don't." Snake sighed, feeling a little depressed, but he still let go of Gu Mingming. In order to gain the status of Senior Prince Charming, Snake had used all sorts of angles to crush that student who should have been worshipped by Gu Mingming, until he started to doubt his life. But this girl actually did not like boys who knew how to swim. Did she have to see that person swimming for her to like him? If he had known earlier, he would not have waited for 2 months. He should have captured her back the moment she started school. That way, the situation this morning would not have happened. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got when he handed the love letter he had waited for over 10 years to someone else. Gu Mingming could feel the intense resentment emanating from Snake. Step by step, she slowly inched away, wanting to escape. Her phone rang at an untimely time, giving Gu Mingming such a shock that all her hairs stood on end. Snake took a deep breath, as if he had calmed down from his resentment. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at Gu Mingming in disdain. His half-smile was a little scary. "The phone is ringing. Aren't you going to pick it up?" Gu Mingming looked down and saw that it was an unfamiliar number. She was a little confused, but still picked it up. "Hello, who is this?" Snake crossed his arms and watched Gu Mingming's expression change like a Sichuan opera face changing. He hung up the phone in a daze and jumped up, shaking his head excitedly. Yeah, the effect was very satisfactory. It was worth it for him to buy a chain restaurant and donate a new air conditioner to the entire school dormitory. He had wanted to see the process of her going from grievance to excitement, but this girl was stronger than he thought. She did not cry when she came out of the toilet. But it seemed like he did not expect her to cry. Now it was very good. Gu Mingming screamed for a long time before she calmed herself down. She grinned from ear to ear and kissed the phone again and again. Snake was dissatisfied. Why was she kissing the phone? Shouldn't she be kissing him? TSK, that stupid phone, which factory produced it? Why was it so ugly and an eyesore? Gu Mingming seemed like she wanted to say something to Snake, and Snake was waiting for her to share her joy. But Gu Mingming just gestured in front of Snake, without saying a word. She just ran off. Snake grabbed her school bag and pulled her back. "Where are we going?" he asked despite knowing the answer. Gu Mingming was extremely agitated. She desperately wanted to share it with someone. Although Snake was not a suitable partner, she wanted to let him off just now, but he came to her door on his own accord. So Gu Mingming hugged Snake and jumped up and down a few times before saying, "I just received a call from Monsieur Company. They said that I passed the interview and can go for an internship. A monthly salary of $4,500, and food and lodging are included. I'm so happy." Snake was in a good mood because of Gu Mingming's hug, and felt even more comfortable seeing her happy expression. Was she that happy to be by his side? Seeing that she wanted to come to his side so much, he would reluctantly forgive her for not knowing his name. Chapter 751. Gu Mingming's brain was in a state of extreme excitement, and she had no time to react to anything else. She still felt like she was dreaming when she held the employment application receipt and the work pass in her hands. Snake squinted his eyes and was no longer in a good mood. What was so good about that stupid sign? Was it better looking than him? Why was it staring at the sign and not him? Reaching out, Snake poked Gu Mingming's head hard and said, "Hey, come back to your senses." Gu Mingming was taken aback and stared at Snake for a long time. She said in a daze, Why are you here?" Snake was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He gritted his teeth and said, "Who do you think drove you here and accompanied you to complete the employment procedures?" Gu Mingming smacked her head and laughed foolishly. Yes, thank you for sending me here." Snake cleared his throat and looked at Gu Mingming arrogantly. He asked, "Just a word of thanks and that's it? No action at all?" Yes. Let me treat the school hunk to a meal. Eat whatever you want in the school canteen." Gu Mingming patted her chest generously. Snake laughed coldly and pinched Gu Mingming's face. "You are really sincere." Gu Mingming's face was pinched into a bun. She mumbled, I just got employed and haven't received my salary yet." Snake smiled and said, "No need. Tonight, someone is going to cook for me. I am looking forward to it." Gu Mingming thought that this was good. She could save money for a meal. She was in a good mood. Snake ignored her and walked straight out. Gu Mingming instinctively followed behind him and entered the lift. She kept staring at her own work pass. It was so rare. But didn't she apply for the position of HR? What the hell was the CEO's assistant? Was it printed wrong? Gu Mingming was a little confused. She wanted to go back and ask but realized that she was already in the lift with Snake. Ding! When the lift doors opened, They arrived at a clean and spacious open office. There were 4 tables in front of the lift and business elites in suits were seated on both sides. When they saw the lift doors open, they all stood up. Gu Mingming tugged at Lasna's arm. Don't press randomly. This is my first day here. Don't give me any trouble. This job is very important to me. Snake smiled and rubbed her head. Yeah, I know. This job is very important to you. So I brought you here to please your boss. With that, Snake pulled Gu Mingming out of the lift. The elites in the workplace saluted and shouted in unison, "Hello, President." Chief Referee. Gu Mingming stared at Snake in shock. Her brain had crashed and she could not function. Seeing this, the white fog came again. Gu Mingming knew that this meant the end of the 2nd episode. He turned back to look at the beast deity and asked, "Aren't you afraid of getting beaten up for being stuck at a place like this?" The beast deity rubbed his nose and smiled. "You've already slept for a long time. If you don't wake up soon, your 2 partners will go crazy." Gu Mingming accepted this reason. Patting his butt, he stood up and said, "Dad, pocket money." Chapter 752. Gu Mingming had gradually gotten used to the feeling of falling from a great height. She felt that in the modern world, roller coasters and pirate ships were all nothing to her. Slowly opening her eyes, she met Elvis's deep blue gaze. She smiled faintly and wanted to speak, but realized that her throat was a little dry. Before Gu Mingming could speak, Elvis had already kissed her. He held a mouthful of water in his mouth and dripped it into Gu Mingming's mouth, moisturizing her parched throat. After the water was gone, a lingering kiss followed. When Elvis released her lips, Gu Mingming asked, "How did you know I was thirsty?" Her voice was a little raspy. Gu Mingming felt that it was a unique characteristic. If she were to sing a heavy metal rock song now, it would be very good. But in Elvis and Lee's ears, this voice brought about a heart-wrenching feeling. Elvis gave another peck on Gu Mingming's lips, as if he had not had enough before saying, "How do you think I fed you water during the 3 days and 2 nights you were asleep?" Gu Mingming's lips twitched as she looked at Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming blushed and gave a soft "oh." Elvis did not know that she was thirsty. He was just about to feed her water, and she just happened to wake up. Stretching herself, Gu Mingming looked around and asked, "Where are we? How far are we from the sea?" There were only a few males at first and no one had the mood to cook. They would settle their meals while hunting to save time, and head to the sea in case Wabi went into hibernation before they were done. Then no one would be able to protect Gu Mingming. But now that Gu Mingming was awake, cooking became the most important task. There was nothing more serious than starving Gu Mingming. Leah held Gu Mingming's hand and leaned into Elvis's arms. He kissed Gu Mingming's face to comfort her before saying, "I will go find something for you to eat." Oh. Ever since they realized that she was especially sensitive when it came to relationships, Elvis and Leah started their unbridled closeness mode. They would tease her every now and then, making her feel as if her heart was about to go numb. She had clearly asked, "Where is this?" But his reply was a kiss. Wabi just watched them coldly from the sidelines. He didn't say a word as he stared fixedly at Gu Mingming, as if he was about to rush forward to interrogate her. That stare made Elvis bristle, and he could not help but bare his teeth. Gu Mingming could even feel Elvis's muscles twitching. Was he going to blow up and fight with Wabi? Gu Mingming gently caressed Elvis's chest with her little hands and comforted him. "Hubby, it's been hard on you these 2 days while I was asleep." Elvis lost his temper after hearing Gu Mingming's soft voice. He lowered his head and met her eyes, leaving only warmth on his face. He kissed her little face and said, "It's not hard to guard you." Gu Mingming planted a kiss on Elvis's face, then smiled sweetly. Successfully pacified. White, turning his head, he looked at Wabi and his expression turned cold. With a "bite me if you have the guts" expression, he asked, "What are you looking at?" Wabi replied, "So what if I'm looking at you?" According to the routine, Gu Mingming should respond with "Come here, I'll tell you," before releasing his beast pressure and completely torturing Wabi. Chapter 753. Gu Mingming shrugged her shoulders in exasperation. Snake doesn't like you staring at me like that. Wabiai's eyes brightened. He immediately leaned forward, wanting to ask but refusing to admit it. You are spouting nonsense. He didn't know I was staring at you when you went to meet the beast deity. Gu Mingming turned her head and pointed at the mark on the back of her neck. What did you say just now? Say it again? Wabiai stared at the lifelike mark, which had shrunk to the size of a palm. He was momentarily dazed. After a long pause, he muttered, could it be his soul is still living in your body? You can sense his emotions and communicate with him? Then can you ask him to come out and talk to me? Just one sentence. Even punching me or glaring at me will do. Gu Mingming burst out laughing. Her expression was extremely nasty. You actually believe such nonsense? How did you survive for the past 800 years? Wabiai was taken aback. He was instantly enraged. His eyes narrowed into slits and his poisonous fangs dripped with venom. Gu Mingming stretched out her fair arm in front of Wabiai. You want to bite me? Here, bite me then. Wabiai opened his mouth but still couldn't bite her. Her arm was too thin. It was not even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. If he bit her, it would break. If her arm broke, who knew how heartbroken that person would be? Look at how you can't stand me and can't do anything to me. How are you like the legendary mighty Wabiai? TSK little shit, just accept your fate. You can't do anything to me. Little shit. Wabiai repeated those two words through gritted teeth. His face was so black that ink could drip from it. Rolling his eyes, Wabiai gave a sinister smile. Since ancient times, the male has to pay for the female's troubles. I can't touch you, but I can challenge your partner. Guess if that stupid wolf and that coquettish fox of yours are enough to fill the gaps between my teeth? Gu Mingming shrugged and stood up from Elvis's arms. She bent down and smiled at Elvis. Hubby, he said he wants to challenge you. Elvis sneered and stood up. He twisted his neck left and right as a form of warm-up. That's great. This is a barren mountain, and there's no need to be afraid of destruction. It's suitable for exercising. Wabiai's eyes brightened as he looked at Gu Mingming. Can we really fight? Gu Mingming sat at the side drinking water and looked at Wabiai. Why are you asking me? It's not like you're fighting me. After Snake left, Wabiai had not met a suitable opponent for a long time. He was extremely dispirited after not battling for so long. On the other hand, Elvis was also very depressed. Ever since they were in the Snake King Valley, he had been feeling sullen and powerless. This evil fire had been pressing on his chest, but he could not find a suitable opportunity to vent it out. He was at the peak of the 5th rank. He should be able to take a beating. Both of them rubbed their palms together in anticipation, but Gu Mingming waved at Ian and said, Hey bro, do you want to join in the fun? WTO Wild Life and Death Edition. It should be quite exciting. Ian sat over with a flustered expression. He glanced at Gu Mingming and pointed at the two beasts who were ready to strike. Are we really going to let them fight? Aren't you afraid of getting into trouble? Chapter 754. When Leah returned, he saw the ground littered with debris and two exhausted males sprawled on the ground, looking like they were on their last breaths. He walked suspiciously over to Gu Mingming, who was calmly drinking from a cup of hot water. He looked at Ian, who looked as if he had seen a ghost, and could not understand the situation at all. He skewered the processed prey on the tree sap, and then placed it over the fire to roast. As he roasted, he said, I didn't bring a pot when I came out, so I'll have to trouble you to eat a roasted meal for the time being. I'll look for suitable ingredients on the way, and dig a pot to bring along. I'll cook something for you that's easy to digest at night. Gu Mingming nodded as a form of agreement. She still had a faint smile on her face. Leah pointed at the two males who were sprawled on the ground, unable to transform back into human form. He asked, These two, what happened? Gu Mingming smacked her lips and smiled. The two of them just engaged in an unfriendly physical conversation. Leah was taken aback. Wabiai challenged Elvis? Gu Mingming nodded as a form of reply. Lee's expression darkened. He asked with a cold gaze, Who won? Gu Mingming glanced at him. It should be considered a draw? Both of their injuries are not light, and they look like they're half dead. Leah lifted his head. Since there's no clear victor, he can't join our family. Who? Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She then laughed. You can't be thinking that Wabi challenged Elvis to mate with me, right? Leah did not find it funny at all. He frowned. No. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. They just had nothing better to do and had a meaningless fight. Leah looked suspiciously at Elvis and then at Wabi. Only then did he calm down. That's good. At least he knows his place. Gu Mengmeng leaned into Lee's arms. She chuckled. Suppressing one's emotions for too long will cause one to become a pervert. What about you? Do you need to find an opponent to vent? I think Ian is a good choice. Both of you have similar skills and should be able to spar. Leah planted a kiss on Gu Mengmeng's forehead. Then he smiled gently. This kind of violent and barbaric method is not suitable for me. If I want to release my stress, no one but you can do it. Lee's voice was light as a feather caressing Gu Mengmeng's heart. Every time he said a word, the feather would flutter, making Gu Mengmeng's heart itch. Gu Mengmeng gently pushed Leah away. She might not be the best in the beast world, but no one in the beast could beat her in the beast. Wabi was lying on his back. After being beaten up by Snake for 800 years, perhaps his combat power was not the best, but no one in the beast world could beat him in terms of endurance. After resting for such a long time, Wabi could already transform back into his human form. His face was bruised and swollen, but there was an inexplicable sense of comfort throughout his body. Wabi had broken 2 of Wabi's ribs. He could not transform into his human form for now, but this bout of venting had allowed him to release all the pent-up anger in his chest. Elvis had 2 of his ribs broken by Wabi. He could not transform into his human form for the time being, but this bout of venting had allowed all the pent-up anger in his chest to dissipate. Chapter 755. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with an exceptionally gentle gaze. Even a wolf's eyes could not conceal that tenderness. His female really understood him. However, Lee's words had enlightened him. Compared to fighting with Wabi, perhaps a battle with Gu Mengmeng would be more effective. Gu Mengmeng held Elvis's face in her hands. It was clearly a fierce wolf's face, but she did not feel the slightest bit afraid. Even if she stuck her hand into Elvis's mouth to count how many teeth he had, she would not feel the slightest bit nervous. She kissed Elvis. The way you look at me is not pure. It's as if you want to eat me up. Elvis thought to himself. You guessed it right. I really want to eat you up. Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis lightly. All right, you just stay here and have a good rest today. We will not continue on our journey today. We will set off tomorrow when you are better. Elvis did not have any objections and just nodded. After all, during the 3 days that Gu Mengmeng was asleep, they had been traveling at a very fast pace. They had been waiting for Gu Mengmeng to wake up so that they could slow down and not tire her out. Gu Mengmeng walked to Wabi's side and sat down. She gave him a faint smile. How is it? My taste in men is not bad, right? Wabi snorted coldly. That's all. If you had not interfered just now, he would not only have 2 broken ribs. Gu Mengmeng thought to herself, yes, if I had not interfered just now, there would be a bloody gash on your chest. You don't want the snake gallbladder anymore? These 2 people were getting anxious as they fought, and they even started to use killing moves. TSK, they really don't know their limits. But Gu Mengmeng did not want to use these words to agitate them. After all, Gu Mengmeng had only wanted them to vent their frustrations from the start. Now that the effect had been achieved, why should she cause more trouble for them? Hence, Gu Mengmeng clicked her tongue. Would it kill you to praise me? But Wabi was unyielding. Bad taste is bad. I am not like those cowards who have been bewitched by you. You want me to flatter you against my will? Maybe in another 100 years. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and covered her mouth as she stared at Wabi. It was only until Wabi was starting to get goosebumps that she pointed at the back of her neck and said, Don't forget, Snake is also my man. Although she did not mate in the beast world, but looking at Snake's attitude in the modern world, she probably could not escape from that time and space, so strictly speaking, this could not be considered a lie. Wabi choked and his face turned red. He was speechless for a long time before he finally said, You have good taste. Gu Mingming laughed out loud. 100 years is so short. It's like a snap of the fingers. Wabi died at the age of 800. The next morning, the group prepared to set off. There was nothing much to pack, and they only brought along 2 new high-quality furs that Leah had brought back from hunting yesterday, to be used as a cushion for Gu Mingming. Walking out of the wishing room, Gu Mingming looked up and chuckled. She exhaled and said, I finally got rid of my little tail. Wabi chuckled. So this was your intention when you made me fight with Elvis yesterday. Gu Mingming smiled without saying a word, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. Chapter 756. Yesterday, the place they were at was a nest of stray beasts. With Elvis and Wabi in their team, they were naturally not afraid of the stray beasts, and the majority of the stray beasts were crazily seeking battle and attacking in a suicidal manner. They did not care at all about the difference in power between themselves and their opponents. All they wanted was a bloody battle and a release. Gu Mingming naturally could not care less if they wanted to court death. But she would not be happy if they dirted her eyes. So she sent Leah to hunt and the little snake to protect him. She called Ian to sit beside her and let Elvis and Wabi fight. She had thought that the battle between the 2 5th-level beasts would be enough to intimidate the stray beasts. She did not expect them to become even more excited and eager to fight. Gu Mingming had no choice but to unleash her Beast King aura. It looked like she was suppressing Elvis and Wabi, but in reality, she was intimidating those stray beasts who were hiding in the dark. They were bloodthirsty and thirsted for killing and death. But deep in their bones, they were still dominated by the fear of a Beast King-level aura. So none of them dared to make a move yesterday. Instead, they quietly followed behind them until Gu Mingming and the rest left their territory before quietly turning back. Subduing the enemy without bloodshed. That is the best strategy. Gu Mingming said nonchalantly. Elvis hugged Gu Mingming and did not say a word. But he did not look too well, probably because he had not fully recovered from yesterday's injuries. No one took this little episode to heart, and just continued on their way to the sea. The nearer they got to the sea, the wetter the air, and the more energetic Wabi became. Finally, after walking for close to 20 days, they finally met up with Fei Rui. Gu Mingming turned around and kissed Elvis and Leah on their cheeks. I will go into the sea with this fellow to check out the situation. I will be back before the sky turns dark. Elvis hugged Gu Mingming and kissed her again and again. He reminded her worriedly, don't force yourself just because you are a Beast King. The sea is not a place for you to unleash your full power. Protect yourself first and don't leave Wabi's side. Understand? Gu Mingming laughed softly. Don't worry. This fellow is even more afraid of me getting hurt than myself. He will definitely keep a close eye on me. Moreover, Gu Mingming pointed towards the sky and smiled mysteriously, saying, I have someone up there. Elvis and Leah followed her finger and looked up at the sky. Suddenly, they laughed and said, but didn't he say that we can't investigate the matters of the beast world? Gu Mingming shrugged her shoulders and said, the principle is not to interfere with the matters of the beast world, but there's no rule that says I can't cheat for my own daughter. In any case, I'm a second-generation immortal now. Even if I'm a fox borrowing the tiger's might, I should at least be arrogant a few times, right? Don't worry, my lonely old man who loves watching TV series will take care of me. Elvis and Leah were doubtful, but they did not say much. Elvis looked at Wabi and said in an unusually serious tone, help me take care of Xiao Meng. I will definitely return this favor in the future. But Wabi snorted coldly and said disdainfully, your face is not enough to order me around. I am giving face to the one behind her neck. Elvis did not argue with Wabi and just said sincerely, no matter what, I am counting on you to take care of Xiao Meng. Gu Mingming hugged Elvis and Lee's neck and kissed them again. Then, she hugged Fei Rui and walked towards the sea. As she walked, she shouted, let's go, little shit. Digression. Chapter 757. After Gu Mingming, Fei Rui and Wabi disappeared into the sea, Leah and Elvis exchanged a look. Leah did not ask anything and Elvis did not say anything either. On the other side, Gu Mingming didn't feel any shortness of breath after entering the bottom of the sea. The kiss of the beast deity was a good item. Perhaps this was a cheat that the beast deity had given his messenger? After entering the sea, Fei Rui and Wabiai kept staring at Gu Mingming, as if worried that she would feel uncomfortable in the seawater. Then they realized that Gu Mingming was like a joyful weight diving into the depths of the sea. They were filled with curiosity towards the brightly colored undeveloped fishes, and even broke off 2 pieces of coral to stick on their heads, asking Fei Rui if she looked like a little dragon man. After Fei Rui entered the water, he transformed into a fishtail, and his upper body was naked. In his human form he looked soft and cute, but in his half-beast form he gave off the vibe of a semi-mature male god. He had the vibe of a semi-mature male god in college. No high school, who knew how to play basketball, play guitar, and ride a bicycle to and from school in a white shirt and jeans. Yes, in high school, no older. If she only looked at his face, she would say he was in junior high school. But this figure, even if a junior high school boy stayed in the gym every day, he still wouldn't be able to develop such well-defined muscles. Gu Mingming's demonic claws reached towards Fei Rui's fishtail, and she smiled slyly. "Can I touch it?" Before Fei Rui could reply, Gu Mingming's claws were already on him. Wow. It was the tail of the legendary mermaid. The scales were bright and neat, reflecting the sunlight filtered by the sea, suffused with a gorgeous and gentle halo. Speaking of flaws, TSK, why was it a male? Her breasts are also too flat, affecting her beauty. Poor review. Although Gu Mingming only touched him once, when she looked up, she saw that Fei Rui's face was already as red as a monkey's butt. She instantly felt a sense of guilt, as if she had accidentally harmed the flower of her country, but she was really just curious. She did not know that the sensitive spot of a fish was its tail. Retracting her numb hand, Gu Mingming laughed dryly. "I won't touch anymore. Let's go. Aren't you in a hurry to save your sister?" Thinking of his little sister, Fei Rui's face darkened. He nodded and swam forward. After swimming for a while, he turned back and realized that Gu Mingming had been left far behind. He had already slowed down, but she still couldn't catch up. Her swimming posture was so strange. Although it looked good, wasn't it too slow? Gu Mingming looked at Fei Rui's confused face and sighed silently in her heart. She helplessly hooked her arms around Wabiai's neck and smiled. "Brother, give me a lift." "On what basis?" Wabiai glared at Gu Mingming coldly. Gu Mingming turned her head and revealed the mark on the back of her neck. "Is this enough?" Wabiai gritted his teeth. He tucked Gu Mingming under his armpit with one hand and carried Gu Mingming like he was carrying luggage. He chased after Fei Rui in his half-beast form without saying a word. To be honest, the speed at which the fish and the snake moved in the water was really F***king ridiculous. It was like sitting on the underwater version of a roller coaster. And it was the version without the safety belt. It was really F***king exciting. Chapter 758. Gu Mingming gestured for Wabiai to release her. Then, with the aura of a messenger of the beast deity, she imitated that lonely old man who loved to watch television series and smiled kindly. "Hello everyone, I am the messenger of the beast deity, Gu Mingming. Nice to meet you all." There was a wave of whispers in a language that Gu Mingming could not understand. Then one of the mermaids transformed into a half-beast form and tried to get closer, but he maintained a safe distance. "Are you really the messenger of the beast deity?" Gu Mingming chuckled. "Have you ever seen a female non-sea tribe other than the messenger of the beast deity breathe and move freely in the ocean at this depth?" The mermaid thought about it and felt that Gu Mingming's words made sense. But he was obviously very afraid of Wabiai behind Gu Mingming. He pursed his lips and asked carefully, "Then is he your partner?" Gu Mingming shook her head. "No, he is my friend." The mermaid seemed very uneasy. He tugged at Fei Rui's arm. "Your Highness, that seems to be a snake beast. We cannot afford to offend him. Let him leave quickly." Fei Rui shook his head. "No, I need his power to save my sister." The mermaid said, "Are you going to disregard your entire tribe for your sister? We have already been chased out of our home by the giant fish beasts. If we continue to cause trouble, The next time the giant fish beasts will kill us all. Feyruey held his head high. The great messenger will protect us. The mermaid said. But the great messenger will not stay in the ocean forever. What will we do after she leaves? When they come back for revenge, who will protect us? Feyruey bit his lower lip. He could not answer the mermaid's question. The giant fish tribe was known as the overlords of the ocean. The mermaids were no match for them. But once Gu Mingming left and the giant fish beasts returned, he would still be unable to protect his tribe members or his sister. So he wanted to mate with Gu Mingming. He wanted to use the identity of the messenger's partner to intimidate the giant fish beasts. This way, as long as he was alive, the giant fish beasts would not dare to bully his tribe members. Gu Mingming shook her head at Feyruey's aggrieved look, which looked like he was about to cry. He was too weak. If he could be forced into such a state by his own tribesmen, what would he do when facing the giant fish beasts? She didn't want to interfere at first, but Feyruey kept glancing at her. Unable to resist the pleading look in his eyes, Gu Mingming sighed and asked, "Has that Dora appeared yet?" Feyruey's expression changed. Feyruey shook his head and said, "No, there's no news at all." Gu Mingming frowned. That shouldn't be the case. The messenger of the beast deity's promise sounded quite valuable. Why didn't Dora take the bait? If she was a pure and innocent child without any greed, she would not have stolen the giant fish clan's treasures. Could it be that he was already dead? Or perhaps, Feyruey, do you know what exactly is the treasure of the giant fish clan? Gu Mingming could vaguely smell a conspiracy. Moreover, it was a familiar formula and a familiar smell. Feyruey shook his head. I don't know. We don't have much contact with the giant fish clan. The corners of Gu Mingming's lips curled up. She chuckled and continued asking, "Then how did the giant fish clan determine that your sister stole their treasures?" Chapter 759. Gu Mingming patted his shoulder. If you want to save your sister, you have to tell me everything. If you hide anything, I may not be able to help you. Feyruey sighed. His eyes that were as bright as the stars seemed to be covered by dark clouds, losing their luster. His brows furrowed as he said with guilt and heartache, "The leader of the giant fish tribe, Carter, led a group of tribesmen and charged into our tribe. They captured my sister and said that Dora had personally admitted that their tribe's treasure was in my sister's hands. No matter how we tried to explain, we couldn't beat them. We could only watch helplessly as they snatched my sister away." Gu Mingming's smile widened. She poked Feyruey's head and asked, "Then what about the territory being snatched away?" Feyruey's lips curled downwards, looking like he was trying hard to hold it in. With a hint of youthful stubbornness, he said, "Because I kept asking Carter to return my sister. He found me annoying and challenged me. He said that if I won, he would return my sister to me. But if I lost, I would have to give him the territory of the mermaid tribe. I clearly knew that I was no match for him. But I still agreed. Because of my stupidity and recklessness, I implicated my tribesmen and my sister." Gu Mingming patted Feyruey's shoulder and comforted him. "Oh, you can do that. All right, let's not wait for that Dora anymore. Let's go find Carter." Feyruey looked up at Gu Mingming in confusion. Gu Mingming smiled. "Can't we challenge him? I will help you beat him up and win back my sister and the territory." Feyruey stared at Gu Mingming in a daze. Can I?" Gu Mingming smiled. "Why not?" Feyruey hesitated. He knew that the consequences would be the same as the mermaid beast's worries. Once Gu Mingming left, the giant fish beasts would still attack them in revenge, and they would not be able to withstand it. But even so, he was desperate to save his sister. Just this once. Just one last time of recklessness. He felt that if it was Gu Mingming, she might be trustworthy. Nodding, Feyruey ignored his tribesman's objections. He grabbed Gu Mingming's hand and flew off like an arrow. Wabi clicked his tongue impatiently behind her, but still followed after her. The people of the mermaid tribe seemed to be afraid of Carter. None of them dared to follow him. They just quietly returned to the depths of the ocean. Other than a string of sighing bubbles, it was as if nothing had happened. The original territory of the mermaids was a large coral sea. The living corals were soft and tender, moving with the flow of the water. They were full of vitality and had an indescribable sense of tranquil beauty. Many nameless aquatic plants were evenly distributed and intertwined with the corals, forming a mirage in the sea. It looked a bit like the East Ocean Dragon Palace. A few giant fish beasts were wandering around the edge of the territory. They seemed to be guarding the gate. The moment he saw Fei Rui, he turned into his half-beast form and mocked him with disdain. "Weakling, are you looking for trouble again? You've already lost your territory. What other chips do you have to challenge our patriarch?" Fei Rui clenched his fists tightly and bit his lower lip, unable to speak. Gu Mingming took 2 steps forward and said with a smile, "Go call Carter out for me." The giant fish beast sized Gu Mingming up with a dazed expression. Chapter 760. Wabi took 2 steps forward and narrowed his eyes. "I asked you to call for help. Are you deaf? If you look again, I will gouge your eyes out." Snake beast. The guard from the giant fish tribe was clearly shocked. He instantly jumped back a few meters and looked at Wabi warily. He seemed to be quite frightened. Gu Mingming tilted her head and asked Wabi, "Why are they so afraid of you? Have you done any harm here before?" Wabi snorted coldly. "Not me, it's him." With that, he tapped the back of Gu Mingming's neck. Gu Mingming thought hard. Snake had indeed been to the bottom of the sea before, but it seemed like he had only come to find some seafood to improve his diet when he was bored. It seemed like he had not harmed anyone, right? Wait a minute. What did he eat back then? Gu Mingming suddenly felt a chill down her spine. She shook her head and finally understood why the ocean tribe was so afraid of snakes. Sighing in exasperation, she grinned at the giant fish tribe who had fled in fear. Clearly, this fellow had obediently gone to report. Chuckling, she said in exasperation, "See, shouldn't you have been so obedient earlier? Why must you let our little shit throw a tantrum? TSK, cheap bastard." Gu Mingming. Wabi gritted his teeth and roared her name word by word. Gu Mingming smiled nonchalantly. "Why are you glaring at me? I am not afraid of you." Wabi was infuriated. He grabbed Gu Mingming's shoulders and turned her around. Then he said to the mark on the back of her neck, "Snake, hurry and take her away." Then Wabi was stunned. There was actually poison on his hands. He had long developed immunity to this poison. After all, he had been poisoned for over 800 years. Although the poison was quickly diluted by the seawater, he could still recognize it. It was Snake's poison. Staring at the mark on the back of Gu Mingming's neck, he was more and more convinced of what Gu Mingming had said previously. Snake was in her body. She was the one who lied to him. Snake was here. He must be here. This realization made Wabi a little crazy. He grabbed Gu Mingming's shoulders and shook her violently. "Snake, you are here, aren't you? Come out, let's fight." Gu Mingming was about to vomit from Wabi's shaking. Actually, it was just because Wabi was too fierce to her just now that triggered Snake's protection mark. It was not Snake's soul that was angry, but it was useless for her to say anything now. Shaking her shoulders, Gu Mingming turned to look at Wabi. "TSK, don't get touchy." Wabi was taken aback for 2 seconds before he continued shaking Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming was really on the verge of vomiting from his shaking. Unable to tolerate it any longer, she slapped Wabi far away. This scene happened to be seen clearly by Carter, who had just been called out from the tribe. There was no other male snake beast at the peak of level 5 in this world. How strong was it? Perhaps, even if they had never met, a single glare from him would be enough to make her heart tremble. A man like this was sent flying by a smaller female? Chapter 761. Carter's shock at Gu Mingming's slap was shattered by Fei Rui's appearance. The moment he saw Fei Rui, Carter's gaze was filled with disdain and arrogance. He smirked and said in an arrogant tone, "If you are so capable, snatch it back." Gu Mingming patted Fei Rui, who was clearly afraid but still wanted to charge forward. She comforted him with a smile. Fei Rui was a good child. Even though his thoughts were not mature enough and he was not powerful enough, Just the fact that he stood in front of Gu Mengmeng to protect her, even though he was clearly afraid, was enough to make Gu Mengmeng willingly help him. Not because of the kiss of the ocean or any other reason, but because Gu Mengmeng felt that Fei Rui was a good person. Fei Rui pursed his lips into a straight line. He was hesitant but eventually calmed down. On one hand, he believed in Gu Mengmeng's abilities, but on the other hand, he was worried that Gu Mengmeng would be at a disadvantage. After all, she was a female. With that thought in mind, he stared unblinkingly at Gu Mengmeng. Every cell in his body was on guard against Carter, ready to use himself as a meat shield to protect Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng chuckled at how nervous he was and didn't say anything. She took 2 steps forward and looked at Carter. He had a strong physique and a resolute face. If he held a fork in his hand, he would be the most handsome version of the sea god Poseidon. His temperament was similar to Elvis from a certain point of view. His entire body was filled with signs that said, "Strangers do not come near." And the way he looked at her was very familiar to Gu Mengmeng, because Elvis and Leah always had this cold and guarded look when they looked at someone other than Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng placed her hands behind her back and looked up at Carter. Her small body contained a lot of energy. The nobility that Snake had accumulated over thousands of years was naturally not something someone like Carter could compare to. Let's put it this way, if Gu Mengmeng really wanted to act cool, no one in the entire beast world could do it better than her, unless Snake himself came back to life. She chuckled with a king's disdain. She opened her mouth and said slowly and evenly, "Now the ocean tribes are no longer under the beast deity's control?" Carter was taken aback and frowned, as if he didn't understand what she meant. Wabi, who had been sent flying by Gu Mengmeng, had already stood back up. He had to play his role well in front of outsiders and not embarrass that person. Hence, Wabi stared coldly at Carter, not saying a single word. Meanwhile, Fei Rui was standing on the other side of Gu Mengmeng. Although he was a little timid, he still said, "This is the messenger of the beast deity, Carter. No matter how arrogant you are, there should be a limit." Messenger of the beast deity? Carter's eyes darkened and his jaw muscles bulged, as if he was gritting his teeth and weighing something. Clenching his fists tightly by his sides, he remained silent for a moment before lowering his head and bowing respectfully. "Greetings, messenger of the beast deity." Gu Mengmeng chuckled. She rested one hand on Fei Rui's arm and leaned against Wabi's shoulder, looking like an indecent empress dowager. She chuckled and said, "Let's skip the formalities. I am here to see. What is your sister's name again?" Fei Rui whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear, "Melinda." Gu Mengmeng said, "Yeah, right. I'm here to see Melinda. Leader Carter, please make things convenient for me." Chapter 762. As they brushed shoulders, Wabi bumped into him. Carter stumbled awkwardly, but could not do anything to Wabi. He could only clench his fists and follow behind Gu Mengmeng silently. This was originally the territory of the mermaid tribe, so Fei Rui was very familiar with the place and easily found his younger sister's original residence. Pink corals formed a circle around a huge open shell. The shell was filled with fresh seaweed, stacked neatly on top of one another. A pillow made from giant clams was placed at one end of the large shell. Beside it was some kind of shellfish containing food. Gu Mengmeng had never seen it before, so it must be some kind of fruit from the bottom of the sea? A young girl was sitting on the ground. Her upper body sprawled on the seaweed on the shell bed. She buried her face in her arms and refused to look up. Her blonde hair was slightly curled. It was not exaggerated, but it was very classy. Gu Mengmeng would not normally say that blonde girls were classy. Even if it was a high-end blonde goddess from European and American movies, she would at most say that they had an aura. Gu Mengmeng felt that only black-haired Chinese girls were worthy of the term classy. But for some reason, just by looking at her back, Gu Mengmeng felt that a blonde girl was classy for the first time. She lay there motionlessly, looking like an injured swan in a ballet. There was a faint sense of sadness and helplessness, but also stubbornness and unwillingness to give in. Gu Mengmeng had not even seen her face, but her heart ached for this girl. "Melinda." Fei Rui called out agitatedly. The girl's back froze for a moment before she suddenly turned around. Her eyes, which were almost identical to Fei Rui's, were misty, but her lips were curved into a joyful smile. Brother. The girl stood up abruptly. Ignoring the numbness in her legs, she ran towards Fei Rui in a sorry state. Fei Rui naturally did the same. He rushed forward and hugged his sister tightly in his arms, comforting her gently and patiently. Gu Mingming glanced at Carter. Her eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Enduring? Sadness? Helplessness? Perhaps it was pain. But there was no anger. This was not the look one should have when looking at a criminal. Gu Mingming was no stranger to this look. Elvis and Leah had the same look when looking at her. You're not satisfied? Gu Mingming stood beside Carter and asked. Carter gritted his teeth and said, unless the great emissary stays at the bottom of the sea to protect the mermaid clan, otherwise. You're still going to use the excuse of the clan treasure being stolen to continue imprisoning the girl? Glancing sideways, Gu Mingming accepted the shock in Carter's eyes calmly. This fellow must have thought that he had acted very well, and no one would know the truth. Gu Mingming smiled like an expert, then said lightly, what you did would only push her to the opposite side of you. If in her eyes, you will always be the enemy. Carter's eyes widened at Gu Mingming's words. He didn't even have such a reaction when he saw Wabi. Chapter 763. Fei Rui finally managed to coax the crying Melinda. Then he held her little hand and slowly walked over to Gu Mingming. He looked at Gu Mingming anxiously. Great messenger, can we bring my sister away? Gu Mingming tilted her head. I just came in to take a look. I will leave after making sure your sister is fine. You have to ask Carter whether you can bring her away. Gu Mingming's words stunned not only Fei Rui and Melinda, but even Carter. 3 pairs of eyes widened in shock. They stared at Gu Mingming in confusion. Gu Mingming shrugged. Of course, no one can stop me even if I were to openly rob her today. But, do you want Melinda to be labeled as a thief forever? Think carefully. If she leaves with me today, it would be equivalent to confirming her crime of stealing someone else's things. She would not be able to clear her name again in the future. Gu Mingming shrugged nonchalantly and said, well, it's easier for me to just bring her away directly, after all. Our deal is just to help you save your sister. It doesn't include clearing her name. And it also doesn't include whether she will be captured again after I leave. Fei Rui was in a dilemma again. He bit his lower lip. It's all right. I can bring my sister to another part of the ocean and start afresh. Far away from here, no one will recognize us and no one will be able to find us. When he mentioned leaving, Carter's pupils shrank. The veins on his fists were popping. He was clearly furious. Gu Mingming tugged at him and shook her head gently. Then, her gaze landed on Melinda's face. She smiled gently. Melinda fulfilled all of Gu Mingming's fantasies of being a mermaid. She was not just a backview killer. Even Gu Mingming, who had been brainwashed by Elvis and Leah to think that she was the most beautiful woman in the world, felt a sense of inferiority in front of Melinda. Long years at the bottom of the sea had caused her skin to be smooth and fair. Her body, which had been honed by swimming, flowed smoothly like water. There was not a single bit of excess fat on her body. She was simply the embodiment of perfection. Her face was so pure that people couldn't bear to say a harsh word in front of her. She was supposed to be a princess that was held in the palm of the hand. Melinda had definitely refreshed Gu Mingming's understanding of females in the beast world. She was the most beautiful female Gu Mingming had ever seen in the beast world. At this moment, Marlene bit her lower lip and hesitated for a long time. But she still raised her head with determination and looked at Gu Mingming. No, I'm not leaving. I didn't steal anything, so why should I run away? Gu Mingming smiled softly. From the corner of her eye, she saw that Carter had also finally heaved a sigh of relief, no longer suffocating as if someone was strangling him. Gu Mingming walked in front of Fei Rui and patted his shoulder. Looking into his sparkling eyes, she comforted him. I will stay by the seaside for a while, and help Melinda settle the matter of the theft. I will let her live openly at the place she likes. Do you want to believe me for once? But Fei Rui's gaze turned towards Carter. It was filled with wariness and hostility. Gu Mingming reached out without hesitation and sent Carter flying with a slap. Then she dusted her hands. With me around, I'll see who dares to bully my little mermaid. Chapter 764. By the time they returned to the shore, the moon was already shining brightly. Leah sat by the fire and stirred the food in the pot, his eyes constantly drifting to the surface of the sea. It wasn't until he saw that familiar figure running in front of him that his heart finally calmed down. Elvis removed the beast skin that had been roasting by the fire and wrapped it around Gu Mingming. He then glared coldly at Fei Rui back into the sea. He watched as Wabi knowingly swam into the forest in search of food. There was no one else by the shore, so he quickly helped Gu Mingming change into a clean set of clothes to prevent her from catching a cold. As Gu Mingming changed, she reached out her hand for food. She was really hungry. Although it was either Fei Rui or Wabi who pulled her along the entire journey, the distance she had swum today was definitely enough for her to complete a triathlon. She had used up a lot of her energy. Elvis was always in a good mood when he saw her eat more. So he asked as he fed her, "How did the matter go? Did the leader of the giant fish tribe make things difficult for you?" Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "The plot is rather melodramatic. It's just like the deep-sea version of The President is Above, I'm Below, adhering to the light-hearted plot of torturing you because I love you. Ha! I really wonder if the brains of you males are filled with laundry detergent." Leah and Elvis were at a loss. They had no idea what laundry detergent was, but from her tone, it was probably not a compliment. But they caught on to something. Torturing you because I love you? So, not only did Gu Mingming attract a love rival for them in the sea today, she had also been wronged and tormented. Gu Mingming could tell from their expressions that they had misunderstood again. Raising her hand, Gu Mingming stopped herself in time. "Stop, don't let your thoughts run wild. He doesn't like me. I am at most a matchmaker in this matter." Elvis's face darkened as he asked in a monosyllabic voice. Gu Mingming took another bite of meat. Before she swallowed, she smiled and tilted her head to point at the surface of the sea with her chin. "There, the main character is here. If you are curious, just ask him directly." Carter had originally come to ask Gu Mingming why she was helping him, and also what to do next. But seeing that there were others around, he could not bring himself to do it. She wanted to go back the way she came, but when she saw how Gu Mingming, Elvis and Leah were interacting, she felt very envious. Momentarily at a loss, she walked closer. Now that he had been singled out by Gu Mingming, it was too late for him to retreat. He might as well transform into his human form and walk over. Elvis handed Gu Mingming over to Leah before standing up and walking towards Carter. With a cold expression he asked, "What did you do to Xiaomeng?" Carter had long seen Elvis's mark on Gu Mingming's collarbone, so he naturally knew about their relationship. He pursed his lips and said, "I was slapped by the great messenger. Does that count?" Without saying a word, Elvis threw a punch at Carter's face. Carter fell to the ground, seeing stars. He was considered a tyrant in the sea, but his abilities were limited on land. Moreover, he was only a third-level beast, so a punch from the fifth-level Elvis was enough to make him suffer. Elvis's voice was cold and filled with anger. "Xiaomeng never hits people for no reason. If she hits you, it must be because you did something that deserves to be hit." Carter looked at Elvis and did not open his mouth. On one hand, he had a deep-rooted fear towards the strong, and on the other hand, he had a favor to ask of Gu Mingming. He was willing to pay such a price. Digression. Author Xiaomeng. "Son, why did you hit people for no reason without asking clearly?" Elvis. "Xiaomeng thinks that he deserves to be hit. That is the most sufficient reason for me to hit him. I don't need anything else." Author Xiaomeng. "Both of you have violent tendencies. Carter is innocent." Elvis. "Innocent? Ha! Do you know how many joints in Xiaomeng's body needed to move to complete that slap? My Xiaomeng had to go through so much trouble, yet he is innocent." Chapter 765. Gu Mingming didn't stop Elvis from beating Carter up. She just ate with gusto. When she was almost done, she called out, "Hubby, wash the pot." Elvis left Carter behind and returned to Gu Mingming's side. He kissed her oily lips, then carried the new stone pot Leah had made to the beach to wash it. Carter then climbed up from the ground pathetically and walked to Gu Mingming's side. He bowed and greeted, "Great messenger." Gu Mingming acted as if she couldn't see the wounds all over his body. "Sit down. Tell me your story." Carter was taken aback. He had thought that since Gu Mingming had been sent by Fei Rui, she would definitely detest him as much as Fei Rui did. Although she had not displayed any hostility at the bottom of the sea, and had even secretly helped him keep Melinda behind, he still could not figure out what this great messenger was thinking. Moreover, he thought that Gu Mingming would at least ask him why he was looking for her. But she asked him to tell her his story? He came here with a stomach full of questions, not to tell a story. Gu Mingming smacked her lips, as if she was still savoring the taste of that last mouthful of meat. After swallowing her saliva in satisfaction, Gu Mingming spoke first. "I will stay here for 10 days. If you can't settle Melinda in 10 days, I will leave with the siblings." "Great messenger," Carter growled. Leah laughed coldly as he protected Gu Mingming in his arms. His slanted eyes were filled with disdain and provocation as he stared at Carter. His tone was calm but colder than the seawater under the moonlight. "Killing you here might be a simpler and more violent method. How long has it been since I last ate fish? Thinking about it, I'm really hungry." They were both third-level beasts, but they were on land. Carter couldn't possibly defeat Leah. If he wanted to return to the sea, Elvis was guarding the beach and wouldn't give him a chance to enter the sea. Moreover, he was here to ask questions and not to cause trouble. Carter bent his knees and knelt in front of Gu Mingming. He lowered his head. "Great messenger, please help me. Tell me how to make Melinda accept me." Gu Mingming chuckled and leaned into Lee's arms. "I want you to sit down, not kneel. If I don't want to help you, it's useless for you to kneel or kowtow. If I want to help you, I won't trample on your dignity, understand?" Carter nodded, not fully understanding. Then he sat up according to Gu Mingming's instructions. He stared at Gu Mingming with sparkling eyes, as if he was hoping to see a flower blossoming on her face, and pluck it for Melinda to win her heart. Gu Mingming sighed and said, "Even if I want to give you ideas, I have to first know what is going on. Tell me your story with Melinda, and I'll help you think of a way." Carter nodded. He was obviously a hardliner, but at this moment, when he thought of his sweetheart, a trace of gentleness and shyness appeared on his face. "There was a territorial dispute between clans, and I was heavily injured. I almost lost my life. I was saved by Melinda, who was out playing. With just one look, I fell in love with her. After I recovered, I returned to the giant fish tribe. The battle was still going on, and I couldn't leave my people behind. But when the battle ended and I went to find her, she didn't recognize me. She rejected me, resisted me, avoided me. She was afraid of me." Out of topic. Chapter 766. She is the most beautiful female in the world. I swear I will cherish her, protect her and give her the best. But she was so nice to me when I was injured. Why did she abandon me after I recovered? I did not do anything to hurt her. Why is she afraid of me? Even you, the great messenger, can see through my feelings for her. Why does she not know? I will never hurt her." Carter felt helpless and helpless. He lowered his head and sighed, unable to say anything else. Gu Mingming chuckled. "You snatched the mermaid tribe's territory and forced her tribesmen to have nowhere to go. You humiliated her brother time and time again, forcing him to come all the way to Saint Nazaire to ask for my help to save him. Do you think all these are not hurt?" Carter looked up in confusion. "I snatched the mermaid tribe's territory because she did not like where the giant fish tribe lived. She said she wanted to go home, so I snatched her home back for her." Gu Mingming could not control herself and laughed. Her face was filled with the word convinced. His way of thinking was really strange. How did he come up with such a solution? Gu Mingming really felt that gender theory and horoscopes were all a fantasy. How did the way of thinking between the sexes become so different? "And Fei Rui, he is always the one challenging me. I have never taken the initiative to find trouble with him. It is not my fault that he could not beat me. Gu Mingming facepalmed. Young man, your way of thinking is called destined to be alone. Do you understand? Carter shook his head honestly. Gu Mingming explained kindly. It means destined to be alone for life. Carter panicked. Why? What did I do wrong? Gu Mingming suddenly wanted to laugh. It was like a child who handed in a blank paper and asked his teacher, Teacher, what do you think I did wrong? What can I improve on? The teacher's reply was, You did wrong because you did not even write your name. Gu Mingming patted Li's chest. Tell him where he did wrong. I am afraid I will drown him with my spit. Leah suddenly felt that Carter was not so annoying. After all, he was blind. A handicapped fish was quite pitiful. Why did he say that he was blind? Of course, it was because he said that Melinda was the most beautiful female in the world. What a joke, the most beautiful female in the world was Gu Mingming in his arms, alright? If he couldn't even tell, what else could he be other than blind? Leah still had some compassion for the handicapped. After all, a witch doctor was also a kind of angel in white. It was his duty to care for the wounded. Of course, the prerequisite was that this patient did not covet his Meng Meng. Clearing his throat, Leah placed his large tail into Gu Mingming's arms, allowing her to play with it. Squinting his eyes, Leah said, With your intellect, you can't have thought of framing her for stealing, right? Tell me, who is the mastermind behind this? Chapter 767. Gu Mingming and Leah looked at each other and smiled, understanding each other. Leah continued. The female said she wanted to go home and you snatched her territory, this idea? Carter replied with a blank expression. Oh, this was my own idea. Leah chuckled. No one reminded you? Carter thought for a moment, then replied. Dora gave me a suggestion. Leah chuckled, then shook his head and sighed, ignoring Carter. He hooked Gu Mingming's chin and said affectionately, Mingming, promise me, don't choose partners from the ocean tribes. They are so stupid, it will lower the average IQ of our family. Gu Mingming nodded in agreement. Don't worry, I am very repulsed by males who don't know how to judge a whore. Elvis had already finished washing the pot and placed it beside a big tree. He then shook off the water on his hands and carried Gu Mingming up. Elvis had heard their entire conversation. He could still coexist peacefully with a male who had no ulterior motives towards Gu Mingming. He kissed Gu Mingming's little face, then said, Take the kiss of the ocean and let's go. He is hopeless, don't waste time. Carter was really dumbfounded by Gu Mingming's family of three. He couldn't get a word in or understand what they were saying, until Elvis said he was not going to care about him. Then he snapped out of his trance and looked at Gu Mingming anxiously. Great messenger, what did I do wrong? Please tell me. I am willing to change. For Melinda, I can change anything. Gu Mingming chuckled. Do you know what your biggest mistake is? Carter shook his head. Everything he did was to keep Melinda by his side. He didn't feel that he had done anything wrong. Gu Mingming. Indeed, a person with terminal male cancer will never know that he is beyond cure. Carter was taken aback. He looked down at his own body and frowned. I am going to die? So I can't give her happiness, right? Gu Mingming thought that communicating with Snake was already the limit of the generation gap, but now it seemed like she was wrong. In the beast world, there was only more difficult communication, not the most difficult. Something like a generation gap, haha, had no limits. Leah chuckled. Not being able to make the female you like happy is your biggest mistake. Carter nodded in agreement and said, I know it's my fault, but I don't know how to change. That's why I'm here to consult Lord Emissary. Leah shook his head and said, Listening to females other than the ones you like is the second mistake you made. Carter's expression was stiff and somewhat wooden. Listening to Lee's words was like listening to a book from heaven. His mouth was slightly agape, and his eyes were blank as he looked at Leah, not understanding what was going on. Leah pointed at Elvis and then at himself. My Mingming liked me first, but he is Mingming's first partner. Do you know why? Kite thought for a moment and said, Because he's a level 5 orc. You can't beat him. Leah snickered. You are really outstanding in your stupidity. How could he have been at the 5th level before mating? Kite slapped his forehead as he recalled the matter of the level 3 boundary. Chapter 768. I thought I was doing it for her own good, so she would definitely forgive me after knowing the truth. I was mentally prepared to accept all the punishments. I thought I was prepared. Leah recalled those days when he was not forgiven. Gu Mingming kept calling him her ex-boyfriend in the cave, asking him to maintain his composure and not pester her. Every word was like a sharp claw, tearing at his heart to this day. This pain constantly reminded him not to do anything that would upset Gu Mingming. He could not bear the consequences. Raising his head, he looked at Carter as if he had been through it all. Leah said slowly, all punishments, including her tears and determination. What if the only punishment she can give you is to tell you with tears that she forgives you and doesn't hate you anymore, so that you don't need to disturb her anymore? Are you also prepared to accept it? All these were clearly just a few words from Leah, but Carter felt as if his chest was being viciously torn apart by something. That pair of clear eyes were filled with tears. It was as if the scene of her saying goodbye was right before his eyes. In that instant, he felt as if every drop of blood in his body had solidified. He froze on the spot, unable to move. Leah chuckled. See, you are not prepared. And you can't bear it either. Carter's temples were throbbing. He was silent for a long time before he found his voice again. Like a drowning man who had grabbed onto a life-saving straw, he said in a trembling voice, "But you were forgiven in the end, didn't you?" Leah looked at the mark on Gu Mingming's ear tenderly, his eyes filled with so much joy and treasure. He reached out and caressed Gu Mingming's little earlobe, then looked at Carter with some arrogance in his long and narrow eyes, saying, "The difference between you and me is that other than Mingming, I will not listen to any other females. Everything I did wrong was all my own idea, while you listened to Dora and hurt Melinda. This is the fundamental difference. Understand? I just don't want Melinda to leave me." Carter was scared witless by Lee's words. There was nothing going on between him and Dora, but why did he feel so guilty after hearing Lee's words? Lee's face was filled with disdain as he sneered. "Oh, your desires are above her happiness. Seems like you don't like her that much." "No, it's not like that." Kite wanted to explain, but he didn't know what to say. Gu Mingming smiled. This Carter was still too young to compete with Leah in terms of wits. Waving his hand, he said, "Carter, you must first be clear about what you want. Do you want to keep Melinda by your side, or do you want her to like you, fall in love with you, and accept you?" Kite was at a loss and asked, "Is there a difference?" Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "Of course there is. There is a huge difference between voluntary and involuntary. The former represents happiness, while the latter represents torture. How can there be no difference?" Carter said without hesitation, "I want her to be happy." Gu Mingming nodded and said, "The first step is to clear her name. Make up for the mistakes you've made in the past. Only then will you have the qualifications to stand in front of her and pursue her again." Carter nodded and said, "All right, I will now go back and announce that Melinda never stole anything. Never." Gu Mingming held her forehead as she leaned on Elvis's shoulder and looked at Leah, giving him a pleading look. Chapter 769. Leah brought Carter to one side and guided him. Gu Mingming could not bear to continue listening to Carter's words. He looked so smart, but why did he sound like a retard when it came to relationships? Nestled in Elvis's arms, Gu Mingming sighed. "Luckily I met you then, or else I would have been angered to death." Elvis's eyes were filled with indulgence and love. He kissed Gu Mingming's eyes and whispered in her ear with a hoarse and reserved voice, "Silly girl, I'm the one who should rejoice." That night, Carter brought Leah to listen to his lessons. Wabi did not return, and was curled up in some tree in the forest. Ian's presence was as low as ever. Meanwhile, Elvis hugged Gu Mingming and listened to her count the stars one by one. She told him interesting stories about the constellations that he did not understand. Her voice was so gentle that he could not sleep the entire night. He did not even want to miss the sound of her breathing. The next morning, Wabi brought back fresh fruits while Ian strangely brought back mini bird eggs. Seeing Gu Mingming looking at him as though he was a pervert, he snorted coldly. Even our eagle owl tribe doesn't have any descendants. How can these uncivilized dumb birds reproduce? Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with disdain. Gu Mingming clicked her tongue and sighed at how black-bellied Ian was. His "if I don't have a good time, no one can have a good time" emphasis was too evil. But even so, Gu Mingming knew that Ian had gone to retrieve these bird eggs because Leah had instructed him in the morning. Gu Mingming was still nestled in Elvis's arms. She did not know why, but she just felt that something had happened to Elvis during the day she went to the deep sea. There was clearly nothing different, but Gu Mingming knew that Elvis was very uneasy, as if he was very attached to her. But he did not want to say, so Gu Mingming could only choose not to ask. Gu Mingming bit on the fruits Wabi had brought back and stretched her neck to wait for Leah to cook the bird eggs. The eggs were not cooked yet, but a few familiar faces came up from the sea. Fei Rui was holding Melinda's hand as he ran over. Looking at the smiles on their faces, Gu Mingming thought to herself that Carter was really efficient. He had only returned late last night and this morning, he had already cleared Melinda's name. Lord Envoy. Fei Rui and Melinda were the same. Their skin was so fair that Gu Mingming could not bear to let them bask in the sun. It was as if the sun could melt them. Meanwhile, Fei Rui and Melinda's cheeks were flushed red. Mermaids did not have sweat glands, so their skin was still dry. However, their panting clearly told Gu Mingming how much they wanted to be the first to tell this good news to her. Gu Mingming patted Fei Rui's shoulder. "Speak slowly, it's all right." Fei Rui took a deep breath. His cold, star-like eyes shone with a bright light. He was so happy that he almost cried. "My sister is free." Gu Mingming maintained a polite smile. Although this news, she had already known about it last night. She still congratulated Marlene happily. She passed one of the fruits in her hands to Marlene and said, "Here, this is for you. To celebrate your freedom." Chapter 770. Gu Mingming looked behind her. Indeed, there was a familiar head peeking over from behind the rock. It clearly wanted to stick close to her, but could only watch from afar. It looked rather pitiful. "You come here for a moment." Gu Mingming pointed at the head behind the rock. Carter was taken aback, but still swam out from behind the rock. He transformed into his human form and went ashore. His eyes were fixed on Melinda. Naturally, he didn't miss the way Melinda shivered and hid behind Fei Rui the moment he appeared. She was still afraid of him. Great messenger. Carter lowered his head and averted his gaze. He didn't want to see Melinda panicking, but he couldn't help but want to get closer to her. Gu Mingming ignored the conflict between the two. She just said to herself, "We want to eat seafood. You and Fei Rui can help me fish some." Carter nodded. Yes. Fei Rui wasn't willing to speak to Carter, but Gu Mingming was the messenger of the beast deity. If she hadn't come, Melinda would still be locked up. Although this matter had nothing to do with Gu Mingming on the surface, Fei Rui knew that if Gu Mingming had not stepped forward, Carter would not have let Melinda go no matter how much evidence they had to prove her innocence. So it was his honor to be able to do something for Gu Mingming. Although it was insignificant compared to what Gu Mingming had done for him and his sister, it still made him feel better. So even though his partner was Carter, Fei Rui didn't reject Gu Mingming's request. He stood up and swam with Carter towards the deep sea. Gu Mingming liked pretty girls, especially those who were beautiful and kind. Seeing that Melinda was holding the fruit without eating it, Gu Mingming smiled and asked, "You don't like to eat this kind of fruit?" Melinda shook her head. "I have never eaten it before." Gu Mingming turned to Wabi. "Is this a fruit that is hard to find?" Wabi pointed to the nearby forest. "There are many of them." Melinda blushed slightly. She lowered her head. "This is my first time coming ashore." Gu Mingming grinned and held Melinda's little hand. "I am very honored to be able to accompany you on such a special day." Melinda smiled sweetly. She was a little shy and bashful. "Thank you, great messenger." Gu Mingming picked up her fruit and took a bite. Then she signaled Melinda to have a taste too. The beauty ate with great elegance. That small bite was like kissing a fruit. Looking at the half-eaten fruit in her hand, Gu Mingming suddenly started to doubt her own feminine nature. After mating for half a year, had she forgotten to maintain her image in front of Elvis and Leah? Is it really okay to eat like this? Gu Mingming thought about it, and started to take small bites of the fruit. But Elvis pressed her hand down and pressed the fruit down. Then he kissed her lips and said, "I like your original appearance. Don't force yourself to learn from others." Gu Mingming blushed. She did not expect Elvis to care about such a small detail. Come to think of it, when she was pregnant with Hutta and his brothers, Elvis was the one who carried them to the toilet. What kind of pathetic state had he not seen before? However, he had seen her at her worst, most disheveled, and most unkempt, but he still loved her. Chapter 771. Melinda told Gu Mingming what had happened last night. It was roughly the same as what Leah had told her. Dora had voluntarily returned the giant fish clan's treasure, because she was afraid of the beast deity's curse, and confessed to framing Melinda for stealing it. Melinda was imprisoned by the giant fish clan as a slave. Her fate was to be used as a currency to exchange for resources with other tribes. To a female, this was not much of a punishment. After all, she was still a treasure in the hands of other tribes. After all, she was a female. But this cleared Melinda of the crime of stealing, and the giant fish clan could no longer imprison her. Moreover, as compensation for wrongly accusing her, Carter also returned all the territories of the mermaid clan that they had lost to him in a challenge. Everything returned to its original position. It seemed that everything had returned to its original point. But Carter's feelings for Melinda grew stronger every day. And Melinda's fear of Carter also grew stronger. Gu Mingming almost burst out laughing after hearing Melinda's description. The beast deity's curse? What the hell was that? So good at making things up. While Gu Mingming and Melinda were chatting, Fei Rue and Carter had also returned with seafood. When Gu Mingming saw the fish Carter had brought back, 10,000 curses ran through her mind. Yes, she said she wanted to eat seafood and fish. But there was no need for you to bring back a whale, right? Gu Mingming's jaw almost dropped to the ground as she watched Carter slowly drag the whale by its tail onto the shore. Big brother, your brain circuit is so F***ing fast. Besides Gu Mingming, Melinda was also shocked. Although Carter had not expressed anything when he had dragged the fish onto the shore, Melinda had already inwardly thought of him as cool and cruel. Her little body trembled as she gripped Gu Mingming's hand so tightly that her fingertips turned white. Power equals charm. This was definitely a male's hallucination after his brain was caught in a door. Wabi, you can eat that fish. Gu Mingming pointed at the whale Carter had brought back. Eat it in the sea. Don't let me see you eating. I am scared. Since Gu Mingming didn't call him little shit, Wabi happily walked to Carter's side and dragged the whale back into the sea without another word. Carter had no idea what was going on. But looking at Leah and Gu Mingming's disdainful expression and Melinda's fearful expression, he knew he had messed up again. He only hoped that she would see that he was very strong and could protect her. Why did it backfire? Frustrated, Kate stood on the spot, not knowing what to do. Fei Rue ignored him and sat beside Gu Mingming and Melinda. He placed a few shellfish on the ground and said, "These shellfish are very delicious, have a taste." With that said, Fei Rue crushed the shell with a kacha, and the shell immediately shattered into pieces. The flesh of the shell was still squirming, and the scene was somewhat disgusting. Gu Mingming sighed and said, "A gentleman stays away from the kitchen." Fei Rue did not understand. He tilted his head and waited for Gu Mingming's explanation. Gu Mingming looked at his clear eyes, then at the pile of crushed shellfish meat in his hand. She smiled and explained gently, "It means to scram and play at the side." Fei Rue lowered his head like a child who had done something wrong. He thought that Gu Mingming didn't like the shellfish and wanted to take it away too. Seeing his aggrieved look, Gu Mingming's heart softened. "Put it down, I will handle it." Aside from the topic, Gu Mingming, I always thought that Colin was the epitome of inexperience in love. But after meeting you, I finally understand. Haha, being unromantic is just child's play. Carter. What did I do wrong? Chapter 772. She got Leah to start a fire and placed a flat stone slab on top of it. She threw the shells on top to heat them up, and soon, they all opened up. There was nothing dirty in the original marine products. Gu Mingming used simple seasonings to marinate them before using tree resin to skewer the shellfish. She had no choice. There were no stainless steel roasting pans here. She could only eat boiled shellfish after skewering them. Boiled oysters or whatever. TSK not interested. After Gu Mingming demonstrated the first skewer, the task of cooking was handed over to Leah. Gu Mingming was more interested in the shells themselves. The nameless shells glowed with 5 different colors, giving off a rainbow-like glow under the sunlight. Gu Mingming and Melinda each took one and couldn't bear to part with it. Especially when they found a good pearl in one of the shells. The 2 females were overjoyed, as if they had discovered a new continent. The pearl was also colorful like the shells, but the shape was not very good. It was not a regular pattern, but a little, like a lazy goat's hairstyle. Although pearls of this quality were not considered top quality in the ocean, the 2 females were extremely rare. Gu Mingming drew the pearl left and right on Melinda's body. The size was just right to make an earring. It matched Melinda's face perfectly. She used a tree branch to draw a simple diagram for Melinda. Melinda's eyes almost popped out of her head. Perhaps only Oriton's obsession with food could compare to a girl's obsession with jewelry. The earring was finally completed. This was thanks to Fei Rui's spitting technique. He held the pearl and spat out a droplet of water from his mouth. It was as thin as an embroidery needle, and accurately pierced through the spot Gu Mingming had pointed out. Gu Mingming was overjoyed. She asked for a strand of Melinda's hair to pierce through the hole, and tie a dead knot. Then she skillfully weaved a flower pattern. Gu Mingming didn't know which generation's inherited memories told her that the hair of the mermaid tribe was very tough and not easily damaged. Moreover, Melinda's hair was long and of good quality. Using her hair to make an earring was the best match for her ears. Everything was prepared. The last step was to pierce Melinda's ears. Why else would it be said that one would not regret dying for beauty? In order to wear the earring, the petite little girl handed over her ear without hesitation, and let Fei Rui spit a drop of water through it. Fei Rui was trembling in fear. What kind of joke was this? Even a slight frown from his precious little sister was enough to make his heart ache. Now she wanted him to attack her? No way, no way. Gu Mingming snorted. So useless. Carter, come here. Gu Mingming waved her hand. Carter walked over silently and stood beside Gu Mingming, his eyes fixed on Melinda. Gu Mingming pointed at the center of Melinda's earlobe. Can you pierce a small hole here? Carter frowned and looked at Melinda. You really want to have your ears pierced? Melinda was afraid of Carter and instinctively wanted to hide. But after looking at Gu Mingming, and then at the pearl earring, she hesitated but still nodded. This was the first time Melinda had asked him to do something. No matter how reluctant he was, Carter would not disappoint her. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.